So we have a DFS episode for you today, and we'll be hitting up a few dozen players, but first, Tags and I are actually going to be drafting against one another at draft.com. I'm using the app. The website's great. The app is beautiful, though. You all can download the app at Google Play or the App Store. If you just type in draft, it's going to come up first. So Tags, why don't you explain what we're doing here?
We are doing a weekly draft. Like if you're out of it, like let's say Dalvin Cook got injured, let's say someone got hurt and your season-long league is screwed up. This is a weekly draft that we get to do where you're going to go through there. You're only picking 5 players, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, and then 2 pass catchers, whether it be a wide receiver or tight end. And it goes in snake style. It is rapid, man. Our draft already started and I got the number 1 pick.
Man, it is going so fast. This league filled up in 5 seconds. We actually tried to start a draft and I didn't get into the first one because it took 5 seconds for me to try to get in. Everyone else beat me to it. So Tags is doing his second draft here. I had the 3rd pick. I was definitely taking one of the best 3 running backs this week. That's Le'Veon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott, and Todd Gurley. I got Elliott with the 3rd overall pick. I'm pretty pumped about that. I'm not loving anybody at wide receiver this week, so I'll probably get my 2 towards the end, and we'll see what happens. Tags, who you eyeing up, and what pick do you have?
So I got the first pick. I'm pretty excited. Yeah, that was me. I got to pick first in this one. So I'm doing 2 drafts at one time. So but the one that we're doing together, I got Le'Veon Bell number 1. So I'm pumped. I've never had the number 1 pick. I do multiple ones of these a week, so you guys pay attention when I post them so that you guys can follow along. But yeah, I never had the number 1 pick, so I was able to snag Le'Veon Bell against the Jaguars, which should be money in the bank.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later, Tags. So the second round is coming up. It actually slowed down a little bit. This is the slowest draft I've seen. And we're almost in the second round already. These things blaze. We're talking it takes 5 minutes to finish one of these drafts. And so you can do 100 of them in a week if you want to. And it's a lot of fun. The more you do, the better you get at it. And the higher advantage you have over people. So right now, I'm eyeing Leonard Fournette. I would love to get him. He's going to be a workhorse against Pittsburgh, and we'll talk about that again later. I think he might drop to me at 2.8. If he doesn't, I'm probably going to go ahead and take my quarterback now because there's only a couple that I really love this week.
Yeah, no, it's really weird at quarterback. So when I was writing up the primer this week, I was going through it and I was like, oh, this guy should be considered a QB2. And, once I got through and all done with it, I came back and I looked at it and I'm like, there's only 7 guys that I feel confident at as a QB1 this week. Whereas Deshaun Watson, I thought he would be a high-end QB2. He's a number 9 in my rankings. Carson Wentz is right in that same territory. So it's a really ugly week at quarterback. So I know this is obviously going to be the DFS episode. So we're going to talk about this and whether or not you pay up for quarterback. It's racking my brain here, but these are going fast. We're already up at the end of the second round.
This is rough. Leonard Fournette was taken. Aaron Rodgers was taken. There goes Russell Wilson. I can go, Lamar Miller. He was the other guy I had my eye on. So I'm just going to go ahead and take Dak Prescott before there's no good quarterbacks left. I mean, there's plenty of solid quarterbacks and I never reach for quarterbacks in these drafts, but I'm getting one here in the second round before it's too late.
Yeah, I'm pretty psyched. Right now, it looks like I'm going to get either DeAndre Hopkins or Dez Bryant, and that's fantastic to me.
Those are the 2 I wanted next round. Don't do that to me, man. Yeah, Leave one for me.
Oh, I actually get 2 picks here, so they're both going to be gone, Bobby, because as you know, I have the turn. So Dez Bryant and DeAndre Hopkins, welcome to my team. Dez Bryant. So it's really interesting, Bobby. I know your pick's going to be coming up here in a second, but Green Bay, they drafted Kevin King for a reason in the second round of this draft. They drafted him for situations like this. They tried using Kevin King in some shadow situations with AJ Green a couple weeks ago. He didn't do poorly, but it's going to be interesting to see how they try and cover Dez Bryant. Because if you recall, last year in that playoff game, Dez Bryant scored 2 touchdowns against them.
Man, this sucks. You took both my guys. I've got Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott right now, so it would have been nice if I could have got Dez too, just, get all the Dallas guys in that big, juicy matchup. I'm going to go with a wide receiver here. T.Y. Hilton is not a safe play by any means, but going against San Francisco, he could have a huge game. So he's the best guy left on the board. I guess that's who I got to take.
T.Y. Hilton, I wouldn't be upset with that at all.
I'm not. He's just, a few steps behind Dez Bryant.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I don't think he's in the territory. I think he's close to DeAndre Hopkins. Andrew Luck, by the way, he started throwing in practice, so that's always positive.
Yes, he did.
I was looking at a few of my teams, and it's been kind of rough, man. I've held on to him, and obviously at the point now where people are still asking me, Mike, do I drop him? No, I don't think you can, just because we're at the point now, you've held on to him so long that you just kind of have to roll with the punches here. I mean, I'm in bye week hell. I legitimately am in a couple leagues, so it's really brutal, and I've had to at least think about it, but no, Andrew Luck, I'm hanging on to him.
I mean, here's the question. Would you drop Tom Brady in this circumstance? He's a better fantasy quarterback than Tom Brady when he's healthy.
I don't know. I mean, it's tough to argue. It's tough to say.
Over the past 3 years, he's closer to Aaron Rodgers in fantasy points than he is Tom Brady.
Well,
he's number 2.
That just goes to show why I was willing to take someone like Andrew Luck in drafts, even though I knew he was going to miss some weeks. But it's still it's a risky proposition, hanging on to him continually and just waiting. And we don't even know. Let's say he comes back and the shoulder isn't correct. I think it's going to be. I think once Andrew Luck takes the field, I think we should have no concern about it because they've been keeping him out for quite some time, just trying to make sure that he's okay. So once he comes back, I'm obviously putting him in lineup. But there is a little bit of risk that's involved.
So it's coming back up to my 4th and 5th round picks, and I got to make sure Tag doesn't snipe me again back to back. Last time we did this, Tags beat me, and it was humiliating. It was not good. So I don't want that to happen again. I'm looking at a running back here because there's just so many wide receivers to choose from. Tags, let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. If I hadn't taken Dak Prescott, would he have made it back to me?
Yeah, he would have. Because the thing is with quarterbacks in these, so it's a 10-team league. That's the way it works. And the position where we're at with our picks, Bobby, in the 4th and 5th round, a lot of people in these drafts seem to wait at quarterback. Well, there'll at least be 3 or 4 teams who are without a quarterback going into that last round. And considering that we're on the turn where I'm about to have my 4-10 and 5-1 picks, I knew that I'd be able to get a quarterback there that was at least at the bottom of the tier, like a Ben Roethlisberger. Like he's like the bottom of the QB1s where I feel this week. Just he's at home. It's a tough matchup against Jacksonville, but I figured like Roethlisberger or Palmer would have been there at that 4-10, 5-1 pick.
Yeah. So, Tags, I'm looking at, I know you don't need wide receivers because you took my 2 guys. So I'm looking at running backs right now. There is one workhorse left. It's not a great matchup, but Amir Abdullah is sitting there. He's going to get at least 15 touches, probably closer to 20. And I know he doesn't get the goal line work or anything like that, and he doesn't get a lot of third down work because Theo Riddick's there, but he is going to get 15 to 20 touches. It's a safe play, and I need some safety since I drafted T.Y. Hilton, so that's who I'm eyeing right now. If not, I've got a couple wide receivers I like quite a bit.
Yeah, it's really rough on me right now because I went Le'Veon Bell. I grabbed the 2 wide receivers, and looking at running back right now, it's kind of pitiful. We have like my decision. If I knew that, I don't think Ty Montgomery plays. Like I think we need to get that out of the way. I really can't see any way he plays, so I'm stuck choosing between someone like Joe Mixon, Isaiah Crowell, Frank Gore. Boring picks.
Up?
Yeah, I'm up now. So I'm gonna go with Joe Mixon just because he's been getting touches.
Oh, yuck!
I know. I'm not excited about it, but all the running backs are kind of gone. I don't want to take Frank Gore.
Yeah.
And
shouldn't have taken my guys, man. Let this be a lesson.
It is a lesson that I'm learning. And I'm gonna grab Ben Roethlisberger. He is the quarterback that was left there for me, and that's kind of where I figured I would be. But having Ben Roethlisberger and Le'Veon Bell on the same team, a little risky, but at the same time, when you're talking about the Steelers at home, Ben Roethlisberger, dating back to the start of last year, he hasn't scored fewer than 17 fantasy points at home.
So I did get Amir Abdullah, by the way. I need one more wide receiver to fill out my team. And I was thinking Golden Tate or Adam Thielen. I was leaning towards Adam Thielen. He's playing on Monday night, so we're not going to be talking about him too much on this podcast because we only talk about the main Sunday slate. But the Chicago Bears, they're really good at stopping number ones. They're going to be keying on Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. I tell you what, this boy can play some football. So I'm excited about that pick here in the 5th round.
I was surprised to see, because like obviously this is where we're now at the end of the draft. It's wrapping up right now. But I was surprised to see you leave Travis Kelce was on the board when you selected Adam Thielen. And I know you don't have to take tight ends, but I felt like Travis Kelce's in a good spot this week. And if he was there in the 5th round for me, I may have debated him over someone like Thielen.
I thought about him, yeah, but I like Thielen a little more. Tight ends just aren't as important in these leagues. So, Tags, why don't you tell us your final roster? I'll tell mine, and we can let the listeners tell us who has the better roster. I think last time I got more votes than you, but I got whooped.
Yeah, I ended up winning that league, so I was pretty happy about it. But my team right now is Roethlisberger, and I have Le'Veon Bell and Joe Mixon, two guys who should see 15 plus touches. Obviously, Le'Veon Bell is the best play on the board this week. And then at wide receiver, I feel like I have 2 studs: Des Bryant against Green Bay, and then DeAndre Hopkins against Kansas City. And just as a forewarning, DeAndre Hopkins against Kansas City, he doesn't line up against Marcus Peters on his side of the field more than maybe 25% of the time. So DeAndre Hopkins is actually a really, really solid play this week.
I love Hopkins this week. Tags, your team's better than mine. I have to admit it. My team, I got Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott against Green Bay. Amir Abdullah, workhorse, faced Carolina. T.Y. Hilton faced San Francisco, and Adam Thielen at Chicago. So let's see. At the end of the draft, it actually tells you how they project your teams. This is the second straight time we've done it that I've got the number 2 projected team in the league. Tags is behind me again, so we'll see how that works out for us. I do like Tags' team more. You all can tweet us at Mike Tagliere NFL and at Bobby Fantasy Pro to let us know who won.
All right, guys, and make sure to go to draft.com/pros. That way, you will get notified when either Bobby or myself starts up a draft. Yes, when you sign up through that link, /pros, it automatically has you guys follow us so that you guys can get notified once we start a draft.
By the way, that's pros, P-R-O-S. We had a couple people ask, so wanted to clear it up. By the way, we're giving away 2 Hall of Fame upgrades to our website. The Hall of Fame tier is the highest level we have, so it would get people everything on the site. Start, sit, trade, waiver wire tools, DFS. If an existing subscriber wins, we're just going to give you the upgrade for next year. Guys, this is big time, so make sure to review and subscribe us on iTunes, then take a screenshot and send us your entry to us at contest@fantasypros.com. Again, we're going to be drawing out 2 names to give away 2 Hall of Fame upgrades to our website for a year. All right, let's talk some football. Hey everyone, I'm Bobby Sylvester with Mike Tagliere, and this is the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. Tags, it's good to be back, buddy. You did an awesome job while I was out, man.
I appreciate that, Bobby. I had to learn a few things. I had a lot of people reaching out to me saying, "Mike, slow down when you're talking. You know, you gotta take it easy when you're in Bobby's chair." And I had to learn some things, and I think that I actually did, even though it was only like a week and a half. But you were out taking care of your newborn. How is the family doing? How are you doing, man?
Everything's great, man. Everyone's healthy, pretty well rested, more so than the first 2 kids. The baby just sleeps well and been cleaning up a lot. But I think our house is actually in better shape than it was before the baby was born because I haven't been working as much and you got to clean a lot. So.
You know what's funny is I think you forget about that, right? I think you forget about how easy it is, like when they're first born. It's just like they sleep. That's all they do. And then you're at the stage where I'm at right now, where my little guy has 3 teeth coming through at the same time. I feel awful for him. I know when I have a toothache, it's like the end of the world. So I can't imagine how he's feeling.
Yeah. So you had it easy while I was gone. I mean, I know you had to like fill my shoes, like doing the host role and everything, but you didn't have me talking trash about Amari Cooper just being horrible. So now I'm back. Now you actually have to defend yourself. Bad take, man. Bad take.
I can't even defend it right now. Right now, Amari Cooper's playing like crap. EJ Manuel's the quarterback for the Raiders. I have zero
He's going
defense.
to this week, too, because he has a hard matchup, and it's going to look bad, but I'm trading for Amari Cooper. I just traded for him in 2 leagues, Tags.
What did you trade for him? I'm curious because there's a lot of people out there who are asking me, is Amari Cooper a buy low? And I'm like, I'm okay with trading for him because his value is at an all-time low. But at the same time, Derek Carr is a guy who suffered an injury that I've suffered before. I've had a fractured vertebrae before, and I know how it feels.
Ooh.
And so when I went to the doctor, there's nothing they can do surgery-wise. They're going to want to send you through therapy. But at the same time, they said bed rest for like 4 weeks. And that's what I had to do. That was the only way that I can get better before I got to go back to work. So Derek Carr may have like a 4-week period where he's gone. I don't know.
They're saying 2 to 6 weeks. I'd be surprised if it was less than 4.
Yeah, and it's really tough to come back from that, guys. Like, I understand how it feels, and it doesn't feel good. So with Amari Cooper, if you're trading for him, don't give away too much, just because we're at the point in fantasy season where you're going through bye weeks, and you don't want to start someone with EJ Manuel as his quarterback. You just don't want to do it.
I traded Lamar Miller for Amari Cooper and Amir Abdullah. Amir Abdullah, people are low on him right now, but he's getting a ton of work. So I'm pretty happy about that. I mean, I don't really like Abdullah much worse than Lamar Miller. Right. I probably wouldn't have gone out of my way to get Amari Cooper, but I'd happen to get him in 2 leagues. I traded in a 2-quarterback league. I got him for, some mid-range quarterback. So I was pretty pumped about that. Amari Cooper's a solid player. I know he has a lot of drops, but he's an extremely good athlete. I don't think EJ Manuel's that bad. He's behind a great offensive line, and we'll get to see what he's made of here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about one of my favorite plays on the board and the one that I'm willing to go to bat for once we get to the running back position because of kind of everything that's going on with that Raiders situation. So I'm looking forward to this episode. I feel good. I feel ready. There's a lot of questions that I kind of have on this DFS slate that I can't wait to talk about.
So, by the way, I've been getting a ton of questions on Twitter. It's Bobby Fantasy Pro. So I want to say sorry. I haven't hardly responded to any of them. Had baby number 3, took off 2 weeks from Twitter. I'll be back next Monday answering a lot of questions, so get them in. I'll still post my rankings, cash game lineup for DFS, bold predictions. So you can look out for those on Twitter. I'll get back to writing next week, too. Appreciate you guys being patient and probably flooding Tag's inbox quite a bit.
My inbox is full throughout the week, and I should apologize because I don't get to too many while I'm writing the primer. As you guys know, I put so much like blood, sweat, and tears into that thing. When it goes up,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a sigh, just like, Oh, I could finally relax for the week. And if you guys haven't heard, by the way, if you live in the Chicagoland area, check my timeline. We're doing a meetup. Myself, Evan Silva, Andy Behrens, a lot of guys, Pat Fitzmaurice, a lot of guys from Chicago. We're going to go meet up with a bunch of our followers. So if you guys want to come hang out, talk some football with me, like I said, check my timeline. We're doing that this Friday.
I think I'll probably show up in my my Bears jersey and booty shorts. How's that sound, Tags?
Sweet. I actually get to make sure that you do this because I haven't stayed on you about that, but it's got to happen at some point.
Should we add something to the combine bet that the combine person has to do it in booty shorts? I mean, that's what they wear during the combine, right?
They do, and it leaves very little to the imagination.
So, Tags, we're going to start with quarterback here. I'm projecting a ton of ownership on Aaron Rodgers. He's projected for 20 more fantasy points, 20% more fantasy points than any other quarterback. Yeah, his price is huge, but it's against the Cowboys, their secondary. It's just too good to pass up in cash games, right, Tags?
It really is. I mean, especially on top of the fact that you consider that the running backs are ailing for the Packers. You have Ty Montgomery, who I can't see playing. He has multiple cracked ribs, guys. I don't know why a running back would want to play through that. I understand the toughness factor and all that, yada, yada. I don't think he plays.
Even so, the Cowboys have a good run defense, so what's he going to do out there?
Well, with Sean Lee missed last week, and if Sean Lee misses, that's a really big blow to the Cowboys defense in the run game. But at the same time, Aaron Jones is a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield just as, Ty Montgomery is. I'm not going to say he can do it as well, but the run game it's not a priority for the Packers. So Aaron Rodgers going into a dome where you don't have to worry about weather, you going against a team that could put points up on the scoreboard, go back and forth with him. It's got one of the highest over-unders of the week. There's really not anything to dislike about his matchup. The only concern is that you're spending up, right? He's 8,100 on DraftKings and he's 9,500, which is like head and shoulders above everybody else on FanDuel. So at FanDuel, it's a little tougher to fit him into lineups, but in DraftKings, I think you can make it work.
There's so much money on FanDuel to spend. I mean, everyone has a huge budget, so you can definitely make it work. I'm using Aaron Rodgers in cash games. There's one other guy I have my eye on, but I want to say this about Aaron Jones. I said it during the preseason. He has star potential. He could be a first-round fantasy pick. He could be a top 5 fantasy pick if he becomes a full-time starting running back. Now, that's probably not going to happen, but while Montgomery's out, if we hear that Montgomery's out this week, he could be a great DFS play because Aaron Jones is a stud, man.
Aaron Jones is someone I picked up trying to fill some bye week problems. So when I saw that Ty Montgomery got in a limited practice and I saw that Jamal Williams got in a full practice, I got sad because Aaron Jones was a guy who I was ready to light up in all of my lineups. I said that he was going to be a borderline RB1 if Ty Montgomery and Jamal Williams missed. And, it's really sad. This game takes place at 4:25 or at the 4:25 Eastern time. So you may not have all the answers before you have to make your decisions. That's the biggest letdown of the entire thing here. But Aaron Jones, if for whatever reason Ty Montgomery is out and Jamal Williams, even if he is playing at less than 100%, I think Aaron Jones is an option. I don't think you necessarily need to go there in DFS though, outside of maybe, tournament lineups.
Is it possible that Aaron Jones has passed up Williams? I mean, he played well. I think Jones could be the number 2 now.
He played okay. I mean, I think it was too small of a sample size to rule out Jamal Williams going forward. I think Jamal Williams better suits, the complementary style to Ty Montgomery, whereas Aaron Jones is more of a similar running back to Ty Montgomery, which is why I think that even if Ty Montgomery's out and Jamal Williams is active, I think Aaron Jones still has value because he's going to be the primary pass catching back. The only question is, can Aaron Jones pass block? We don't know if he can. That's one of those things where if he can't do that, he's not going to stay on the field. Aaron Rapowski might be out there. There's so many questions surrounding it. So again, Aaron Jones, he's not really going to be a cash game viable running back because there's just too many questions surrounding the Green Bay backfield. But at the same time, in tournaments, those are the types of players that you want to take chances on because they can pay off in a really big way.
So we talked about the Packers. The other side of this game, the Cowboys are also implied for 27 points. It's going to be a shootout. So you have to like Dak Prescott, who since he joined the league is the most consistent player. Mm-hmm. He's 1,800 less than Aaron Rodgers on FanDuel, but the number 2 projected quarterback on the slate. So I love him too. If you want to save some money, great play.
I'm trying to decide. Cash last week, I went with Dak. I was happy with that.
Me too.
But going down, looking for cash game quarterbacks this week, if you're not going to pay up for Rodgers, Dak 6,800, solid play. Definitely like him there, but there's a little concern that Ezekiel Elliott's going to run wild on the Green Bay Packers defense. going down a little bit further, I think that Carson Palmer at 5,900, I think that's a solid play. They're going to pressure him there. There's without a doubt, the Eagles have not generated the pressure that I think that most people expected their front seven to, but Carson Palmer is someone who's been sacked 17 times through 4 games. He's missing his best offensive guard, Mike Upati. He's missing DJ Humphries.
They've got 4 offensive linemen hurt and a run blocking tight end.
And they can't run the ball. So it's just, the Eagles know what's going on here. The Eagles are at home. There's been a lot of people who have asked me, Mike, why do you have the Eagles ranked so high this week in terms of your defense special teams? And that's the reason why. Their secondary is bad. We get it. But that's the thing. You're not betting on that. You're betting on sacks. You're betting on some turnovers. They're going to score some points. But think about it this way, Bobby. The reason that I'm scared to use Carson Palmer, they scored 16 points against the Colts, 17 points against the Cowboys, and 18 points against the 49ers, and they needed overtime to do that. They only scored 12
points. The Rams scored 40 plus against the 49ers.
Yeah, that's my concern.
It's not like the 49ers are all right at defense. They're horrible.
Exactly.
I love Carson Palmer this week for GPP, but I wouldn't dare use him in cash games. I mean, besides Prescott and Rodgers, there isn't a soul I'd consider for cash games. For GPP, there's a few I like. Carson Palmer, who you mentioned. Deshaun Watson stands out against Kansas City, but I think his ownership is going to be a little too high to excite me. Do you have a GPP option to you like, Tags?
Oh God, no, nobody's gonna want to hear this, but Jay Cutler.
Me too.
Yeah, I think he's a solid option. I talked about Jamie Eisenberg. He was in the show with me yesterday doing sit start, and he goes, Mike, as well as I do, you're gonna look at rankings and you're gonna see Devontae Parker up in wide receiver 1 territory. You're gonna see, Jarvis Landry up in wide receiver 2 territory, and then you're gonna see people touting Kenny Stills as someone that you could put in your lineup as a bye week filler that could, adding all this stuff up, and the fact that Tennessee, the one thing that they've done well on defense is limit opponents' run games. Everything kind of lines up here for Jay Cutler to kind of get right. And I brought up the fact that this game is in Miami. They need to get right. So if, let's say they get up 21-0 on the Titans, the Dolphins are not going to sit back on that. The Dolphins need a confidence builder. They need to get this offense right. So they're going to go out there and do that. But one question I wanted to ask you, Bobby, am I totally off my rocker to think that maybe on DraftKings that you could use Brian Hoyer in cash? He's 4,700. Like, he needs to, like, in cash, like when you kind of go through your cash game lineup, just as a home exercise, if you look at the price, all you want is 2.5 times is what you're looking for of the salary. So if you have a player that, is 5,000, 2.5 times would be 12.5. So with Hoyer at 4,700, if he gets you 11 points, he hits value. And against the Colts,
there's a better chance he hits value than anyone else besides Aaron Rodgers or Dak Prescott, in my opinion. So, no, you're not crazy. He's the only guy I'd consider on DraftKings. I wouldn't dare use him on FanDuel. But, yeah, at that price point, it's not like there's great values this week. So if you need to save money, quarterback's a decent place to do it when you've got $4,700 for Brian Hoyer against a bad defense.
Yeah, that's nuts. Like, I just saw that. I was like, 4,700. Like, wow, it's tempting me to use it in cash. Like, I don't know. I haven't done my lineup construction just yet, but I wanted to throw his name out there because you can fit some big names in your lineup if you were to go through and play Brian Hoyer.
Yeah. And for a GPP, you mentioned Jay Cutler. I want to talk about him a little bit more. So what's his ownership going to be? Like 0.3, 0.4%? They got shut out against the Saints. But you have to remember, he's got 10 days to rest. He had to learn a new playbook. He didn't think he was going to play football again, so he had to get in football shape, get back to being a professional athlete. I understand, he had the same offseason as everybody else, but, he thought he was done. He wasn't keeping himself in perfect shape. He's been out there. He didn't really get much practice, and now he's playing against NFL defenses. He's going to be fine. He's Jay Cutler. He's a solid quarterback, and he's going to be a solid quarterback against the Titans. So I think he's a great GPP play, Tags.
Yeah, I would rather play him in a tournament over Palmer. I think Palmer's upside is really lacking. Like, if you go through it and you look, like my series that I did this offseason on Boom Bust and everything in between, Carson Palmer over the last 7 years, he has 3 games where he scored more than 26 fantasy points. That's it.
Really?
So his upside is non-existent. He doesn't run the ball at all. Cutler can always run in a touchdown. He's an athletic quarterback. And the thing is, Jay Cutler, if you guys, being from Chicago, I've gotten to see a lot of Cutler. And Jay Cutler, when he's under pressure, that's when things go wrong, right? He's forced to make decisions. He's sacked. He fumbles. What the Titans have done this year, they have failed to generate any pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And if you give Jay Cutler time to sit back and kind of take in the defense, he's going to do just fine. And I think the upside is higher for him. I could see a game, it's not out of the realm of possibility where Jay Cutler throws 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he runs for a touchdown. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but when you're talking about $5,200 on DraftKings, pair him with Devontae Parker, and you have a solid foundation, and you can build around that.
Yeah, we're looking for someone with a 5 to 10% chance at just going nuts. and shredding his value. We're not talking about someone who we're expecting to get 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, but this kind of thing does happen with quarterbacks like Jay Cutler. So 5% chance, ownership 0.3%. You got to go for it. I mean, I'm not saying use him in every single GPP lineup, but get some exposure to Jay Cutler. Someone else I have to mention, someone that you laughed at me about 2 weeks ago, the suddenly blazing hot Eli Manning is a solid price on FanDuel. And my favorite GPP play is actually Joe Flacco, who's been horrible, just 33 points in 4 games, and his price is $7,200, so that's pretty high. Guarantees his ownership is going to be nice and low, but I'm telling you, he's against Oakland, bottom 5 pass defense. He's got a great game script, and most importantly, they finally trusted him to throw 49 passes last week after throwing just 23 per game in his first 3 contests. This isn't a fluke. He was the league leader in pass attempts over the past 2 seasons. So look, I think the 49 is the real deal. I think he's going to get 40 plus again, maybe 50 pass attempts this week. He may be terrible. He may be playing hurt, but Flacco has huge upside and low ownership, so I love him.
Yeah, he's 4,700 on DraftKings too. He was another one that I threw out there with Hoyer that I was kind of like, all right, which one would I choose if I had to pick one? And it would be Hoyer for safety in a cash game. But Joe Flacco, I kind of went through this in the primer and talked about how I feel about Flacco this week and what the Ravens must do in order to combat the pass rush that the Raiders bring. Because if there's one thing that the Raiders do well, it's get after the passer, right? The offensive line of the Ravens is in shambles. They've lost both interior linemen. That's not good. Marshall Yanda, was one of the premier Pro Bowl. Like he's always a Pro Bowl. Yeah, he might be one of the best guards in the NFL. Losing him, the run game's not going anywhere. So the game plan has to be some quick hitting passes, right? Jeremy Maclin's got to get involved. Ben Watson has been targeted a lot more recently, and I think that's no coincidence that that's happened. It's also not a coincidence that Brashad Perriman and Mike Wallace hadn't really done much. I know Wallace had a solid game last week, but he's also a receiver that can do different things. I think that this needs to be a quick hitting offense to move the ball. I don't think they need to take very many chances going against EJ Manuel and the Raiders. But again, this game is in Oakland, which is a little concerning. It's just a tough place to play, and the Raiders are going to hold onto the ball with Marshawn Lynch, and that can kind of transition us into the running back position. And honestly, Bobby, I want you to talk me off the ledge here because I have Marshawn Lynch ranked as my number 7 running back this week. And I know people are going to tell me I'm nuts because I want to say his consensus is around 20, but the Ravens run defense is awful. Brandon Williams missed the last 2 weeks. And if you go through and look at it,
Brandon Williams is really good. That's a big deal.
Yeah, in the last 2 weeks, they've allowed over 320 yards rushing, 3 rushing touchdowns to the combination of the Jaguars and the Steelers. And, coming into that game, the Steelers hadn't run the ball well at all. So to see Le'Veon Bell go off for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's saying something. Marshawn Lynch, this game is in Oakland. They need to rack up wins so that they can afford to give Derek Carr the rest that he needs. Because if they lose 2 games in a row, they're going to feel pressure to get him back on the field. This is a winnable game against the Ravens. They just lost Brent Urban on the defensive line 2 weeks ago. You can run the ball on them. Run the ball. Marshawn Lynch is like a must play at 5,100 in cash for me.
Lynch is a must play on DraftKings. I agree. He's not on FanDuel. He's on my radar. I like Marshawn Lynch. I have him higher than expert consensus. I mean, what are they going to do? Put their playoff hopes on EJ Manuel's back? No, they're going to run the ball with Marshawn Lynch, who's a good player. I mean, he hasn't really been that great this year. Like, if you watch the tape, he's had some explosions and everything, but he's not the same Marshawn Lynch we're used to, but he is a workhorse. He is going up against a bad defense, so you've got to keep your eye on him. I think Marshawn's going to have a solid week. For me, I think Le'Veon Bell, he had the huge game, 186 yards from scrimmage, 39 touches against Baltimore. First of all, Baltimore, I don't think we can say they're bad against the run. They have been bad against the run. I think we can say for sure that they're not great against the run, though. So you can use a player like Marshawn Lynch against Baltimore and feel fine about it, not be super worried. We all know that stat. They didn't give up 100 rushing yards for however many games to any running back. That's not the case anymore. It's not the same running defense. Anyway, Le'Veon Bell, huge ownership this week. I'm talking above 50%. People are just going to look at the Jaguars defense, see they were torched by the Jets, worst against the run all year. But that game was in London. And after that, most teams get a bye. They came back and they played a game right after that. Plus, they gave up 75 yards on a 5-yard run when the running back tripped. Everyone thought the play was dead. So I think he's going to have a much harder time than everyone expects against Jacksonville. So I'm actually fading Le'Veon Bell in cash games and GPP. Are you on him, Tags?
I like Le'Veon. I can't find a way to go away from him. And the reason I say that is because what Jacksonville does extremely well, get after the quarterback, right? And they cover perimeter wide receivers extremely well. So when you talk about Jalen Ramsey covering Antonio Brown, and you talk about AJ Boye matching up with Martavis Bryant, who, by the way, that's one to watch, because if they're going to trust AJ Boye in man-to-man coverage and they're going to load the box to stop Le'Veon, Martavis can burn anybody in coverage, like anyone. There isn't a cornerback in the league who could stay with him, stride for stride. So I think Martavis, that's just what I want to mention just as a tournament play. I think that's strong. But at the same time, that's what they do well, right? They stop perimeter wide receivers. So when you try and figure out how the Steelers are going to score the points that we're expecting them to score this week, they're going to have to run the ball. They're going to have to move that. You don't think that Jesse James is going to be involved much. I think Juju Smith-Schuster is a player that you should watch because, over the middle.
In the red zone. He's not going to be on the field enough to play in GPP in my opinion.
He actually played more snaps than Martavis Bryant last week. And the reason this happened is because Eli Rogers was a healthy scratch. People are talking about him and the fact that Eli Rogers, that he's a hamstring injury. That's not true. He was a healthy scratch last week. Juju Smith-Schuster is the number 3 receiver and he's playing the slot.
If he's playing that much, why do they not throw him the ball until they get in the red zone?
It's a good question. I think that maybe it might be the fact that he's a rookie. Maybe Roethlisberger doesn't trust him. By the way, Ben Roethlisberger, he's running his mouth again, and the guy just needs to stop. Seriously, stop, Ben Roethlisberger, please stop. But like I said, going back through this game, the way that the Steelers are going to score points is through Le'Veon Bell, and they have to move the ball through him. You don't want to be on the wrong end of this, where it's like if he has that 50% ownership and he goes off like I'm kind of expecting him to, you don't want to be on the wrong end of that, that Le'Veon Bell's conversation.
I'm not saying Bell's a bust. I'm not saying he's a bad play. I'm saying that there's other running backs I like, and I'd rather spend my money at wide receiver and quarterback because I think there's really not too much value to be had at those positions. So I'm also fading Zeke, who's also going to have big ownership. I know he had 25 points, but with 2 touchdowns and against a defense that give up 40 to the 49ers, Green Bay just, they don't have a good defense, but they aren't bad against the run. I just think people are too excited because they see the 25 points and they don't realize, a lot of it was on 2 touchdowns and Green Bay's defense isn't actually that bad. He could go off, but I'm not banking on it and paying that price when there's other strong options at the position.
So who are you paying up for then? So who are the top options? If you're fading Bell and Zeke, I'm not playing Gurley.
Oh, no, I'm not playing Gurley either. I'm playing Carlos Hyde. He's really good, man. I know he's listed as questionable, but he's healthier than last week when he saw another 21 touches. And now his backup's banged up. I'm expecting 20 to 30 touches against the Colts, who are one of the worst run defenses in football. I'll be using Hyde in cash games for sure. And then I'm playing Leonard Fournette in cash too. 93 touches in 4 games this season against 3 of the best run defenses in football. Tags. He looks like Zeke from last year from a fantasy standpoint. And like Hyde, he shows up on the injury report with a knick-knack injury, so people are going to be off him. The Jags are the biggest underdogs on the slate, but they use Fournette in every game script no matter what. They've been in 3 blowouts. They give him the ball a ton no matter what. He could go nuts this week against a subpar Steelers run defense, and I think he has a high floor too. So Carlos Hyde, Leonard Fournette for me, Tex.
I would stay away from Hyde and cash. And I'm not saying that I don't like Hyde as a running back because I think that there's always a good shot at he scores a touchdown this week. But the Colts run defense has been a lot better than I think anybody gave them credit for. Coming into the year, they replaced a lot of their linebackers from last year, and they did it with a bunch of little pieces. They didn't go out and get a really big name or anything. But there's I want to say 4 new linebackers on this team. So far, 3.7 yards per carry. They've played Todd Gurley. Remember that week 1 where they held Gurley to 40 yards on 19 carries, and we all said, oh God, Todd Gurley must be back in 2016 form. And then, they haven't played any really strong. Chris Johnson, Isaiah Crowell, and then the Seahawks running backs last week. So you have to kind of wonder, but at the same time, what if they install the same game plan that they used against the Rams in week 1 when they held Gurley to those 40 yards on 19 carries? That's my concern with Carlos Hyde because, force Brian Hoyer to beat you. And I think Brian Hoyer is competent enough where I think that the 49ers do win this game. Hyde would bank on a touchdown. I don't think that we're going to see him get 100 yards or anything.
You don't think he gets a touchdown? I mean, the Colts have given up the 6th most points to running backs this season.
Yeah, they have allowed 4 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown. So that's what I'm saying. I don't dislike Hyde, but I don't know if you need to go there in cash. I would rather play Marshawn Lynch in cash than Carlos Hyde.
Okay. 18 touches, 28 touches, 21 touches the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's 6,900. That's my issue.
He's cheap, man.
I want to see him down. I want to see him in the 6,000 range, down where McCaffrey and Mixon are. I would like to see him down there. Obviously, that's not going to happen. So like I said,
for what it's worth, he's the number 6 projected running back, according to our consensus projections. and he's the number 9 priced player. So it is a value. You're making a good point about the safety aspect, but I mean, you have to remember, San Francisco is almost always the underdog, and he's still putting up these points. This week, it's even. It's dead even. So he could get even more work.
Oh, yeah. You won't find a bigger Carlos Hyde fan than me. Like, I like Hyde. I just worry about this team. The offensive line, for whatever reason, like they're playing better than I think everybody expected, because most people had them in the conversation with the Seahawks, myself included. But they've been blocking pretty well for him, actually. I can't really complain about the blocking in San Francisco. Obviously, the Kyle Shanahan effect is real, and it's worked out pretty well. But you going through the running back position, that's why for me, in my lineups, Le'Veon Bell and Lynch are going to be the majority of it. The only other players I'm really thinking about is like DeMarco Murray's down to 5,400. I'm not in love with him, but you're getting a big discount. Yeah, you're getting a big discount on him against a Miami defense that's really lacking. And honestly, it seems like Matt Castle is going to start this game.
They're lacking, but they have a lot of skill at defending the run. That one makes me nervous. I would not use him for cash games.
Yeah, I wouldn't use him in cash, but I just think he's an interesting option for like tournaments, because nobody wants to play DeMarco Murray right now. But it's a similar situation to Marshawn Lynch, where I don't think Marcus Mariota plays this game. And if Mariota doesn't play, the Titans, a team who had playoff, aspirations, people thought that they could go deep into the playoffs. They need to win games. And the way that they do that is running the football. It's going back to what they did very, very well last year. So I think that they run the ball 40 times this week against Miami, if possible. The only way that it doesn't happen is if Miami blows them out. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not to say it can't, because Tennessee's defense is really, really bad right now. But DeMarco Murray, you're getting the discount, 5,400 against Miami. I'm not running from that. Miami has allowed looks like they've allowed. They're like bottom 10 in terms of fantasy points allowed to running backs. Like they're one of the defenses that you'd want to target. So again, 5,400, not too bad.
If DeMarco Murray goes for 130 and 2 or 3 touchdowns, is anyone going to say, no way, I can't believe that happened? Of course not. DeMarco Murray is really good. He's still really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. And that's the thing, is Miami, if there's one thing they've done well, it's limit the run. But if you go through and you look at their opponents, Melvin Gordon, who's really struggled this year, Bilal Powell, and Matt Forte, I agree. And then Mark Ingram last week. Alvin Kamara looked really good in the passing game. Speaking of which, Alvin Kamara needs to start playing more.
He is really good, man. Alvin Kamara, I was wrong about him. That guy can play some football.
Yes, he definitely can. How do you feel about Isaiah Crowell this week? 4,700. It's a game. And again, neither me and you are not Isaiah Crowell fans. But at the same time, it's very rare we get a situation where Crowell is at home and favored in a game. That's the case this week. They're at home against the Jets, who are coming off 2 wins, who have played better against the run than I guess people expected. But at the same time, we're still talking about the Jets. Isaiah Crowell at 4,700. How do you feel?
So the Browns had 65 snaps last week. Crowell played 22 of them. 22 out of 65. No, I'm not interested whatsoever. Don't ever play Isaiah Crowell again. His DFS career is over, in my opinion.
That's so awesome. Is there any way that you would put Thomas Rawls and Eddie Lacy in a lineup? 3,700, 3,400?
No. I mean, yeah, I would consider virtually anybody for DFS, because there's always bad plays that go off, and no one's going to own those bad plays. So you get some exposure to a lot of guys. I still want to get exposure to Crowell, but yeah, I'd probably get some exposure to one of those guys in case, they end up getting 15 or 20 touches for some reason. I have no idea what's happening with Seattle's backfield, so it could be a big week for one of them.
Well, here's an idea for you guys. If you're playing DFS and you can do it on DraftKings, you're able to do late swap, right? Put one of them in your lineup. Put Rawls in there, actually, because you have to, because he's 3,700, Lacy's 34.
On DraftKings, 3,700. Right. And FanDuel, he's not that price.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, and FanDuel doesn't do late swap either. So you have to do this on DraftKings, where you go. So wait until those afternoon games, they're coming up, and you're going to find out who's supposed to be starting, because all you have to do is pay attention to the beat writers. We can find out whether Lacy or Rawls is starting for the team. Whoever is starting, play them in your lineup, because the Rams defense, despite getting Aaron Donald back in week 2, here's what they've allowed since then. The Redskins have run for 222 yards against them. The 49ers, 104 yards against them. The Cowboys last week, 161 yards against them. They've allowed, it is now 6 rushing touchdowns through 4 games. 1 receiving touchdown. They allow massive points to ground games. So again, at 37 and 3,400, you're taking extremely little risk. And I mean, like I said, when we talk about that, trying to hit 2.5 times value, if you play him, you're basically saying if he scores 9 PPR points, he hits his value, and that's all you're looking for. If Eddie Lacy is starting, I would play him at 3,400.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, Aaron Donald's returning. That's great. He's a really good player. He's not great against the run. And this Rams defense, They cannot tackle to save their lives.
Yeah, they don't look very good.
All right, Tags, a few other running backs I want to talk about just really quick before we move over to wide receivers. Todd Gurley against a surprisingly pedestrian Seahawks run defense. Lamar Miller still getting a ton of touches. I know he's not great, but he's still getting a ton of touches, and Foreman's still sitting there. But, he gets Kansas City at night. Not a great matchup, but he could have a really big game. And then Duke Johnson. I think he's a better version of Chris Thompson. Plus, he has a killer matchup, and he's super cheap.
I would love nothing more than to say Duke Johnson is like one of my favorite plays of the week. But the problem is that Hugh Jackson continues, and he came out today and he said that I still believe in Isaiah Crowell, and he's backing Isaiah Crowell. Last week, yes, he only played it was a season low 22 snaps, but I think it came down to game script, and I think that Browns have kind of forgotten what they need to do to win games, not put the ball in Deshaun Kaiser's hands, because he looks like a rookie. There's really no other way to say it. He's not feeling the pressure. I went back and watched that game, and man, he looks. There's times where you're like, wow, he could put the ball on a rope, and the ball placement was really good. And then other times you watch, and the guy has zero awareness. Like, he just doesn't know what's going on around him. There was a blocker coming on, and it wasn't even his blind side. He beat the right tackle, and he's coming directly at Kaiser. Doesn't even notice he's there. Takes a smack in the face, and it was just like, how do you not see this, man? And I think this comes back to the fact that even his college coach had talked about how Deshaun Kaiser wasn't ready for the NFL, and that they started him on day one. I'm never on board with that. By the way, Bobby, we didn't even get to talk, you and I, about the Bears. I feel sad about that, about Trubisky, and I'm on board is saying I'm rooting for him, but I mean, I wish they would have waited.
For him too. I mean, he's a lot better. He's better than Mike Glennon.
Oh yeah,
but they might win an extra game or two now, and that really hurts their draft stock. And Trubisky won't develop as well, in my opinion. So I don't like the call at all. I want to say this, Tags, about Isaiah Crowell. If you take out last week when Johnson had a ton more snaps than Crowell, Johnson has more snaps on the season in the first 3 weeks than Crowell.
Yeah, it's come down to game script and the fact that Cleveland couldn't stop anybody on defense. With Myles Garrett coming back this week, I think Cleveland wins this game. And the thing is, I can't see the Jets winning 3 in a row. Just can't see it happening. I'm betting against it every single time. Again, Cleveland is at home here. The game script could be perfect. I would love to say Duke Johnson. I think Duke Johnson should get more touches than Isaiah Crowell, but Hugh Jackson doesn't. And he's unfortunately the one that matters in this situation.
Not as many carries, sure, but I mean, think about how many receptions he's got over the last 2 weeks. What is it, 15 now?
Right, but does game script fit that this week? That's my concern.
I don't know, man. That's a good point. One other player I want to hit on, Amir Abdullah, who granted he only has 1 touchdown. He's a little banged up, doesn't have the easiest matchup, but you can't beat his price for a workhorse running back. Guaranteed to get 15 plus touches. So for GPP, could have a big game. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Amir Abdullah, he's someone that I was advocating buying in season-long leagues because he was a guy that was getting 15-plus carries a week.
I still am.
That's hard to find, and if people are willing to sell Amir Abdullah, you should be out there buying him right now. I'm not excited about this matchup against Carolina because Carolina does stop the run extremely well. They were pressuring Tom Brady last week. Their front seven is solid. It's their secondary that has got some question marks in it, but their defense is still pretty solid. The Lions' offensive line isn't really where it needs to be, but again, this will take time. There's some new pieces on that offensive line. So Amir Abdullah, I don't like him this week, but in terms of if we were going to go back to a season-long conversation, I think Amir Abdullah is a buy right now.
Somebody dropped him in my big money league, and I bid $52 on him for Fab. Somebody else bid $51. It was awesome. I was so pumped.
Wow. Somebody dropped Amir Abdullah. That's nuts.
I don't know.
Why do you drop a running back that's getting 15 plus touches a week? You just can't find that on the waiver wire.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost don't want to tell you about that because I'm embarrassed that I'm in a league where someone dropped Amir Abdullah, but it's cool that I got him for $1.
Well, Jamie Eisenberg was talking about the fact that he was in a league that Amari Cooper was dropped. So it happens all over the place, man. What? People overreact to this stuff. I swear.
Was it Jamie that dropped Amari Cooper?
No, he didn't. But he said, but he said you're getting to the point where it's just getting really ugly. If we find out, he said if Derek Carr doesn't come back for multiple weeks, he's definitely in the conversation. I'm like, I'm not going to drop Amari Cooper, but it's desperate times, man.
Yeah. By the way, we have to mention Wayne Gallman. Everyone's talking about him. Chargers run defense is no good. I'm a little worried about Orleans Darkwa, though, stealing some touches. One final note, just avoid Joe Mixon at all costs this week. Then trade right after he struggles this week because Buffalo's run defense He was really good, and Cincinnati can't block at all, so it's going to be an ugly week for him, even if he gets 15 touches. Maybe he'll sneak into the end zone, but I'm trading for Joe Mixon right after this week.
Yeah, Kyle Williams returned to practice for the Bills too. So, Joe Mixon's not a great play. But the thing is, I talked about this with Brandon, Marianne Lee earlier in the week when we did the waiver wire show, and the fact that running back position is really scarce right now. Like once you get outside the first maybe 12 running backs, it's just you're talking about a big mess. So when you find a guy like Joe Mixon who's gotten an average of 21 touches since Bill Lazor took over, you kind of have to play him, right? I mean, I don't think you have to in DFS, which is why like it's just an ugly slate for me. Like I don't feel confident with very many running backs, which is why it came back to Lev, Zeke, and Marshawn Lynch. But I mean, wide receiver is definitely a lot better this week. I don't know how you feel about that, how your roster's construction's kind of going, but there's some really good mid-price wide receivers this week.
It depends on what you qualify as mid-priced. I'm not as excited about them. Tags, I think wide receiver is tough this week. Jordy is considered the top play according to my model, but the Packers have some offensive line injuries, and Dallas can get after the quarterback, so I feel like this is kind of a trap play. T.Y. Hilton is a good play, but he's not really safe. Beckham's banged up. Brown's going to be covered by Ramsey or Bouye, who are two of the top 4 best cover corners in football. So it's ugly at the top. And as odd as it may sound, I love DeAndre Hopkins again this week. I know you drafted him, and so you love him too. He's going against the Chiefs, so it's not the greatest matchup. But like you said, he's not going to get Peters, and they just throw him the ball too much to ignore. So I like Hopkins a lot. Dez is also a must play for me in cash against Green Bay in that shootout. He's a touchdown machine, man.
Yeah, 6,500 in DraftKings is a steal. He's more appropriately priced on FanDuel. He's 7,800 on there. But for me, Jordy Nelson is the number 1 play at wide receiver. Anytime you play Jordy Nelson, you just really get a really good feeling. You have a sense of safety around you whenever you play Jordy Nelson. You get that, especially when he's in a matchup against Dallas. And you mentioned the offensive line. It's funny because actually both starting tackles are due back this week. They've been practicing. It seems like Aaron Rodgers is actually going to have protection once again. And if you give Aaron Rodgers time,
that's dangerous.
Good luck, secondaries. Good luck. And
if you rush him, good luck, man. He's just so good.
He is. He's ridiculous. Devontae Adams, it seems like he's going to play, but he may be doing so on limited practice time throughout the week. Randall Cobb may have the toughest matchup in the slot against Skandrick. I'm not worried about Skandrick, but again, this comes back to his number 1 receiver, Jordy Nelson, just destroys the competition. Like if they wanted to, I'm pretty sure that Jordy Nelson could set the record for touchdowns in a season. That's just the connection that him and Aaron Rodgers have. And in a game where we expect Aaron Rodgers to throw at least 3 touchdowns, Jordy Nelson's going to be on the end of one of those at minimum. Yeah. But one of my other favorite plays that nobody seems to be talking about, and I don't want to say nobody because I don't get to listen to a whole lot of podcasts or anything like that, but I haven't heard anybody mention him this week, and that's Doug Baldwin. People are scared off him after last week, but
you talking for cash games or GPP? Because I will not play Doug Baldwin in a cash game, no matter what the matchup is.
Why not?
Because he's so risky, man. He has big games, and then he just sucks so many times.
He does suck sometimes, and that's the thing is people viewed him as this very consistent receiver, and he's really not. But looking at the slate, you started talking about it in the fact that this is a really, really tough slate when it comes to a lot of the top-tier wide receivers. So when you kind of look at it, he's going to match up with Kayvon Webster, who's been dealing with some injuries himself. He actually missed weeks 2 and 3. They may actually bench him. I don't know if they're going to go to Troy Hill. I don't know what's happening. But with Aaron Donald causing havoc on that Seattle offensive line up front, it's going to be quick hitters. And one of the things I went and looked at I went to use NFL Next Gen stats. So they have a stat. It's called targeted air yards, and it basically at the point of where Doug Baldwin is being targeted is 8.8 yards down the field. That's the shortest among everybody. Jimmy Graham, his is I think 9.2 yards. Richardson is at 14.9 yards down the field, and then you have Lockett, who's like 12.2 yards down the field. So, if they're generating pressure, which I expect them to against the Seattle offensive line, they're going to need to get the ball out quick. And what better way than Doug Baldwin, who looked fine. He played a full complement of snaps last week, so I don't really have any reason for concern in a game that they were destroying the Colts in that second half, but they could have pulled him and they really didn't. So I think Doug Baldwin's healthy, and at 7,000 in a PPR format, he's pretty safe. I just can't find anybody else in the slate. Dez Bryant, you hit that on the head. Like Dez Bryant, for sure. He needs to be in your lineup at 6,500, but Devontae Parker, you're playing Devontae Parker, right? Like I think he's cash game viable.
Parker's awesome. But I want to say, you make sense about Doug Baldwin, but I refuse to say Doug Baldwin is ever safe. Yeah, Devontae Parker, he's a great play. You talked about it earlier. Everybody on Miami's a great play, except Jay Cutler, supposedly. But yeah, Jay Cutler's a solid play, too. Larry Fitzgerald at Philly for a bargain. Golden Tate at home against Carolina. They're quality, safe plays. Same goes for Jarvis Landry at home against the Titans. So those are guys I like. Anyone else you like for cash or GPP tags?
If you go down the list, I mentioned Martavis Bryant earlier. I like him for tournaments, but in cash, Jeremy Maclin. Nobody's gonna have the cojones to do it, but I'll do it. I'm gonna play Jeremy Maclin in cash this week. I think the matchup is too good.
No, you're not. Are you serious?
100%. I will play him. $4,200. He's got to score 10 points. 10 points.
$4,200. Okay, yeah. Okay,
he's so cheap.
Like on FanDuel, would you play Jeremy Maclin on cash?
No, absolutely not. Not in FanDuel. FanDuel, you don't have to. Like that's the best part of FanDuel. But honestly, I've always been a better DraftKings player. I always just play better in a PPR format. I just feel like it's more predictive. I know people say it's free points in that, but it also does require...
It is more predictive, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is when it comes down to that, you're going to have the fluke plays, sure, a catch for -2 yards or whatever, but it's also more predictive because it comes down to targets. But Jeremy Maclin is in the area of Cole Beasley, Jordan Matthews, who's not playing, Josh Gordon, who's also not playing. Like, that's the range that they have Jeremy Maclin in. Again, like when you're talking about cash, you're trying to find some players down there in order to fit guys like Le'Veon Bell in your lineup in order to fit Jordy Nelson. So yeah, I will have Jordy Nelson, I will have Jeremy Maclin, and then I may have Dez Bryant or Devontae Parker. Like that's probably going to be my trio of wide receivers in cash.
I don't know if I'd use Parker in cash. I love him for GPP. He's probably my favorite play. The Titans have allowed a handful of monster games to receivers this year, but I don't exactly know who it's all going to go to. There's 3 weapons there, and Cutler has been spreading the ball out to them. So I love Parker for GPP. He could have a huge game. I also love Rashard Matthews for GPP. He looked good again with Corey Davis continuing to miss time. He's a killer price against Miami. So maybe narrative street there.
But Mariota's not going to play. That's my concern, is that if Mariota's not playing, you don't want anybody on the Tennessee passing game. Like if he was playing and if he was solid, yeah, I would have no issue with that call. But I think
he's not going to play, but like they're still going to throw the ball.
I don't trust Matt Castle.
I don't think they can run the ball that much against Miami. I know you said 40 carries or whatever against Miami. If they do that, they're going to lose this game by 2 touchdowns because Miami does have a good run defense.
I think the only way to hide their defense in Tennessee is to run the ball. And, they have the offensive line. They have the running backs to do it. This game could get away from them because their defense is that bad. Miami needs to strike first. Like they need to get on a roll. Otherwise, they're going to lose the game. Like mark my words.
Or just throw a 60-yard touchdown pass to Rashard Matthews, which happens.
Well, not Matt Castle though. So no, actually, I think a solid pivot though, like you mentioned, I actually like Devontae Parker better in cash because I think he's going to be so heavily owned. It's going to be ridiculous. But in tournaments, I think it would make sense to pivot off of him and go to Kenny Stills. Kenny Stills at 3,700. We've seen him catch touchdowns. I want to say he led this team in touchdowns last year, and nobody's going to play him at 3,700. Another player I want to mention, though, Torrey Smith. Can we go back to this? Is it possible that Torrey Smith crushes this week because Arizona
crushes? I don't know. Hold on, Torrey Smith, you got to go back to him.
Hold on. Let me ask you this question: do you think Philadelphia beats Arizona? That's the first question.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk about how they're going to do that. So Carson Wentz is going to drop back to pass. Or they want to run the ball. They're not going to run the ball against Arizona. Arizona's defense has been lights out against the run. Like they don't allow anything on the run. It's like 3.2 yards per carry. It's just bad. And they've played some good running backs too, including Ezekiel Elliott. They're not going to be able to run the ball, okay? What else does Arizona do well? They stop the tight end. Tight ends, there have been 21 of the last 22 games where they've held the opposing tight end under 53 yards receiving. So the tight end's out.
They're the best against tight ends in all of football, right?
Alshon Jeffrey going to match up with who? Patrick Peterson. So
don't do that.
So all of a sudden we're just continue to cross off names here. So if you think that Philadelphia is going to beat Arizona, Torrey Smith or Nelson Aguilar is going to have a game. Like that's going to happen. Like prepare yourself.
That makes sense, man.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is when you walk through all these steps, it's like, all right. And if you look at what they've done so far, it kind of all fits the narrative, right? You go back to week 1, Kenny Golladay, the number 3 receiver, 4 catches, 69 yards, 2 touchdowns. Then you go Bryce Butler 2 weeks ago, 90 yards and a touchdown. So it's just everything sets up so well. And if Torrey Smith doesn't get it done here, then, it is what it is. But in a tournament play for 3,600, I think you should take a shot.
That's genius, man. I love that. You totally talked me into it. Last week, I had 100% exposure to Tyler Kroft.
Yeah, buddy.
And I hope you guys followed along because 2 touchdowns, man. I was really excited about that. This Torrey Smith one, man, it seems pretty similar.
It's down the board a little bit, and I understand that it's going out on a limb, but 3,600, that's nothing. Like it's literally free. Stack your lineup elsewhere and use him in a tournament. Don't play him in cash, obviously, but yeah, Tyler Kroft, I got a lot of love on Twitter for that call.
You went Tyler Kroft too? I didn't hear you say that. That's awesome, man.
Oh yeah, on the show we talked about.
Were you copying off me? Probably.
It was funny because I saw your article come out after that podcast. I'm like, Bobby, listen to the podcast. That's what happened.
Oh, that's funny. No, I did not. I didn't before I listed that.
No, it's cool. The sharp people should have been on Kroft. Like it was kind of like a play. He was 2,600 on DraftKings. He was like free. And there's a couple good plays at tight end this week.
I have to mention Jerron Brown first. Site minimum on FanDuel. It's incredible. We project him as a wide receiver 3. His price is wide receiver number 96. 12 targets last week, over 100 yards. I know John Brown's back, but Jerron has been so good that I have to use him in cash and save some money. It's just a great price.
I think he's a solid play too. You're not going to hear an argument from me. The last 2 weeks, the Eagles have allowed 5 receivers to score at least 14.6 PPR points, which is obviously what DraftKings is. Jerron Brown, I actually talked to Jamie about him yesterday, and the fact that Pete Prisco, his sidekick there at CBS, said that he goes out to the Cardinals camp every single year, that he's really close with the coaching staff, he's really close with the owners, and he talks to them every year. And he said that he was on David Johnson before anybody else, saying that the kid was going to be a stud, even when he was on the third on the depth chart. He said that Jerron Brown, that they love Jerron Brown. So he's like, Mike, because I asked him, in a season-long league, I wanted to start Jerron Brown this week, but I also felt like it was a trap. Going back to J.J. Nelson when they were playing the Cowboys, I wanted to play J.J. Nelson because, for obvious reasons, he was just a guy that was on fire. He seemed to click with Carson Palmer, and then he goes and he does nothing. I felt like it was a trap with Jerron Brown, but after hearing Jamie talk about that, 4,500, I'm on board. And again, especially against a Philadelphia defense that they've been solid against the run, and then they really don't have a secondary at all. And Arizona doesn't have a run game at all. Chris Johnson's just bad.
So, Tags, who's been even worse than the Browns and Raiders against tight ends this year? The Giants. Hunter Henry is outsnapping Antonio Gates now, and is stupid cheap. He's $300 cheaper than Tyler Kroft, so I love him for GPP. My cash game play is Evan Ingram, though.
Evan Ingram and cash. My cash game play is Austin Seferian-Jenkins. And it's funny, I was waiting for you to come on that because you're like the big Seferian-Jenkins guy. And
I'm the huge Seferian-Jenkins guy. I might like him more than Sammy Watkins. No, okay. Not quite. But I love ASJ.
Yeah, his matchup this week is the same one that obviously Tyler Kroft had last week. I expect the Jets to lose this game, so therefore the game script should favor him. He's got 10 targets since he returned from suspension. He's number 2 on the team over that time, behind only Robbie Anderson. So when you're getting 5-6 targets against the Browns, I'll bet on you to hit your value at 3,500. So I was gonna
think he could be a big time red zone threat too. I mean, he's a big old dude.
Oh yeah, he is. He's massive. He's a very athletic guy. Like the talent was never in question. It was more about like his mental state, where he was at, and then it came down to where he was playing, because he's playing on the Jets, a team that doesn't really score that often. That's the concern, right? But against the Browns, it makes sense. And I actually was going to tell you that this is your week to play Hunter Henry in tournaments. I don't think he's going to be heavily. I don't think he's going to be heavily owned because, like, again, there's been 2 of 4 games this year where Hunter Henry has seen 0 targets. So I don't know how that he would be over maybe 10% played, even though it is a fantastic matchup.
No, we're talking 4 or 5%. Yeah,
you think
not getting up towards 10. And Antonio Gates, he's a good play in GPP as well, because one of these guys is going to get a touchdown or 2. I think it's the case against the Giants. I want to go back to Evan Ingram really quick. I mean, he's just getting so much work. Odell Beckham's still banged up a little bit, so I think he's a nice, safe play. There's one other guy I like the position. I mean, it's kind of a crapshoot because it's just touchdown or bust. But I like Jared Cook too. He's getting consistent targets. Baltimore has incredible corners. Again, 2 of the top 6 in football, and they haven't really been stopping the tight end. So I think Jared Cook's a safe play. This comes back to me not being able to trust EJ Manuel. And I mean, if you think he's better than I do, then that's obviously where I think he's more likely to throw to the tight end than Derek Carr was also.
He's been targeting Jared Cook quite a bit. And Jared Cook is someone that, it's funny, we've had a conversation with our boss about Jared Cook and the fact that we don't like him very much. And he's just screwed people over for so long that you have this deep-rooted anger and hate towards Jared Cook. So when you add in EJ Manuel and you have 2 extremely high variants, like, I just don't want to play him. Antonio Gates was interesting. And the reason that I wouldn't play him is because even if he scores a touchdown, I don't think he, crushes. Antonio Gates just looks like he's done with football right right now. I don't know why he's playing more than Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry should be the primary tight end, whereas Antonio Gates is like a goal line player. Like if they
the Chargers clearly don't want to win. If they started Hunter Henry 90% of the snaps, instead of 0-4, they'd be like 3-1.
Yeah, and it doesn't even matter if they're home or away. Like the opposing team has more fans wherever they're at, so it really sucks to be the Chargers right now. Like seriously, like they played against the Eagles last week, and there were more Eagles fans at that game than there were Chargers fans.
They can move to St. Louis, man. We'd support them.
Evan Engram, man, that one's interesting. He's the number 7 fantasy tight end right now. The Chargers have yet to allow a touchdown to opposing tight ends on 19 targets. I also seem to think that they may need him to block a little bit more this week because the only thing the Chargers really do is bring pressure.
Yeah.
That's my only concern with him because he's looked really, really good. I just think I would rather play Hunter Henry.
They can split him out wide and let another tight end block, though. I mean, he's virtually a wide receiver. He's good like Marquise Colston.
They need like 7 men on the offensive line with how bad their offensive line looks. Like seriously, the Giants.
Yeah, you're right. They really do.
It's so ugly. It's ridiculous. Like if you, Brian Baldinger on Twitter, I don't know if you follow him or not, but like if you're listening to this show, follow that guy. Like he does this thing called Baldy Breakdowns, and he's a former player, and he goes through and he talks about like, you know, schemes and like how everything kind of works and why players succeed and why they don't. And he went through the Giants offensive line and he like ripped him to shreds. And if you watch it, it's impossible to, you just wonder how certain guys on that offensive line have jobs. And that's not something that I like to say, but seriously, how do they have jobs?
Well, I mean, Eric Flowers is probably faster than both of us, and he's
so
huge.
But he's so
huge,
bad.
man. I mean, you have to give him a chance. I know that, like, okay, maybe you give him a chance by like letting him improve at practice, but he's so talented that he has to have an NFL job.
I would disagree. I think this is one of Bobby's hot takes, by the way. I think welcome back to the show, Bobby, because no, Eric Flowers deserves to be on the bench. Like he cannot play. You cannot.
Yeah, he deserves to be on the bench, but he has to have a job. He's so talented.
I mean, he's an athlete, if that's what you mean.
That's what I'm saying.
But he's just not very good at
athletes can
protecting
become superb football players if they get enough chances.
Tell that to Terrell Pryor, who sucks. By the way,
he was good last week.
So no, hold on a second. So on Monday, before that game even happened, we recorded our podcast, and I said that I expected Terrell Pryor to have a semi-decent game, and that if he did, you should sell him. If you are listening to this show and you own Terrell Pryor, and if you have not sold yet, what is wrong with you? Seriously, sell him. That touchdown, the ball hit him right in the breadbasket. He kind of did a little push off against Marcus Peters, but that's really all he did the entire game. And now Terrell Pryor is actually maybe facing a suspension. He apparently got into it. I didn't even hear exactly the full details of what happened. But when you talk about something
racist slurs against him, and he turned around and flipped him off. He said exactly what happened, and you know that he's not proud of it or whatever. But I mean, if somebody did that to me and I was face to face with them, like I would do worse than flipping them off.
It's
right?
tough. It's tough.
I mean, I want to have self control, but like if somebody's yelling that in my face the whole game, I don't know how I would deal with it.
Yeah,
I don't know how these guys have as much self-control as they have.
No, right, and we don't know, you know, what happened all throughout the game and things like that. And it goes back to like the whole Ron Artest situation where it's like things can get ugly. These athletes, like you can, if you've ever been to a game, if you've ever been close enough to the field, all these fans do is scream negative stuff at the players all game long, at the opposing team, right? And at some point, yes. And if you're having a bad game, it's really easy to just turn around and say, you know what, you know, that's easy to do, but at the same time, they have to be better than that. Terrell Pryor,
you're right.
Terrell Pryor just hasn't been very good on the football field. That's what it all comes back to for me. And just because he's an athlete doesn't mean that he's going to dominate players in the field, and he hasn't. They have their bye week now. It's Josh Doxson. If this guy could stay healthy, like if he could just stay healthy, like it's so aggravating because after the game, reportedly dealing with some shoulder issue now. I'm this close to giving up on Josh Doxson, but he is the most talented wide receiver on that team.
Yeah, I like Josh Doxson. No, he's not even close to the most talented. But moving on to defense, I actually love the Texans for GPP. The Chiefs have been great, and Smith doesn't really turn over the ball, but 4,300 on FanDuel for the best defense in football. And when the Chiefs allow plenty of sacks, their ownership's going to be really low. It's just too good of a GPP recipe for me to pass up.
I like the Eagles a lot. And again, nobody wants to hop
They're
on.
my cash defense. Yeah, it's not even close for me. Eagles all the way.
Do you not? So one team that I was thinking about in cash, I don't know if I need to. Again, I haven't constructed too many lineups yet, but the Bills are on the road against the Bengals. And I know that the Bengals have looked good the last 2 weeks, which is why you're seeing the price down at 2,600 for the Bills. Like they're down in the area of the 49ers and Dolphins defenses. Like that's down where they're at. They're averaging 10.3 points per game. And they've played a lot better offenses than the Bengals. The Bengals offensive line is still in shambles. I know they've had 2 solid weeks, guys, but again, it's been against bad defenses. The Bills have been really good under Sean McDermott. I think the Bills at 2,600, if you need to save the $500 to go from the Eagles down to the Bills, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I haven't really thought about this one much, but I mean, think about this. They're going to stop Joe Mixon, as I already mentioned. Eifert is almost certainly out. I don't know if it's official yet, but he's going to be out.
Ruled him out. Yep.
And then you've got a superstar in the making, in my opinion, Tre'Davious White. I don't know if you've seen this kid play, Tags, cornerback for Buffalo. He might already be a superstar. He is really, really good. Going to be going up against AJ Green. So what do the Bengals have, man? I don't see them really putting up many points this week.
That's the point, is like Tre'Davious White, and yes, I have seen the kid play, and he looks really good. EJ Gaines and him have kind of played over their heads, like better than I thought they would. You know, they came in to replace Stephon Gilmore and Ronald Darby, and they've done it without like a hitch. Like they've played better, actually. Stephon Gilmore in New England looks awful. So this is the first real test, because last week it was Julio Jones, right? And then Julio got hurt. By the way, Julio, stay healthy, man. Like seriously, it's like a Ferrari.
Killed me last week. I did so well in a GPP lineup, and Julio Jones getting hurt, it was the end of me.
Yep, I finished 12th place in a GPP while Julio got hurt, and it was like 6.2 thousand people. It could have been a first place lineup had Julio stayed healthy and done what I thought he would to the Bills defense. But even then, even before he got hurt, he was held to 3 catches, 30 yards. So it's not like he was destroying in that matchup. This one is like the end all be all for me. With AJ Green seeing as many targets as he has, like if they shut down AJ Green here, I will talk about it next week's show, and the fact that the Bills are a legit defense that you just fade all of your players in. Like you don't play your players against them. And Kyle Williams coming back, that's big for them on the defensive line. So yeah, I think the Bills at 2,600 are a sharp play. I also think that the Raiders are in play at 2,900 against the Ravens. Joe Flacco has now turned the ball over. I want to say it's in 10 straight games. 10 straight games he's had at least 1 interception. They're just not doing very much on the offensive side of the ball. You're basically banking on at least 1 interception, and you're going to get at least 3 to 4 sacks. So that's why the Raiders, I think, are in play at 2,900.
I noticed you didn't mention the Steelers. I think they're going to be the top-owned defense on FanDuel this week. But listen to this, okay? And go ahead and laugh. Bortles has fewer interceptions over his last 6 games than Aaron Rodgers. The Jaguars allow the fewest sacks of any team in football. I'm not saying Bortles is good. He sucks. But he isn't the number 1 quarterback to pick on, and the Steelers aren't world beaters, so this one just seems overhyped to me. They're going to be like 25% owned. I'm not really that interested.
Yeah, the Steelers defense, I haven't really given them any thought. It's because I feel like if they want to, they can run the ball. It could be a lot of garbage time scoring too, where I don't know. I'm not really that interested in the Steelers defense. I saw that they were the top price defense on DraftKings, and I scrolled right past them because I don't think by any stretch of the imagination that they're worth that unless you're going with like a tournament lineup. But again, if they're going to be that highly owned, then why not just go somewhere else?
Yeah. All right, Tags, that's all we have for the show today. It was fun chatting again, man.
It was so fun, man. I'm so glad to have you back. I do much better in this chair than I do yours. Your chair, I basically was there to keep it warm. That's all.
I also want to say thanks to the sponsors of today's show, draft.com. So go ahead and sign up and deposit at draft.com/pros. That way you can be notified and draft against me and Tags. We're going to be doing several of them a week. And also make sure to subscribe and review us on iTunes so you can get entered for the Hall of Fame package giveaway. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.